Could Steelers GM Omar Khan be getting ready to pull off yet another blockbuster trade for either Terry McLaurin or Micah Parsons? Today, we're going to be talking about that right here on Steelers Talk. But before we get into the content tonight is the Friday Night Lights practice in Latrobe there at Steelers training camp. I'm going to have my full practice report on that once that practice is over later this evening. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already to get our extensive training camp coverage. We put out practice reports every single Steelers practice in Latrobe. We're also going to be going live for every single Steelers preseason game, of course, starting next weekend on Saturday. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already for your daily dose of Steelers training camp news. All right, so the news of the day, or I should say yesterday, was that Commanders All-Pro wide receiver Terry McLaurin has officially requested a trade away from the Washington Commanders. He has been seeking a new massive contract extension, and the Commanders have not been willing to come to the table. So could the Pittsburgh Steelers potentially pair Scary Terry up with DK Metcalf here in Pittsburgh to create one of the best wide receiver duos in the National Football League today? Now, first off, I just want to say Terry McLaurin is a hell of a football player, all right? Of course, last year, a second-team All-Pro selection, and, you know, he is getting a little bit older. He's going to be turning 30 in September, which is part of the reason why the Commanders haven't paid him as of yet, but he's one of the best all-around wide receivers in the National Football League right now. He's a great deep threat. He's got phenomenal hands. He led the league in contested catch rate last year. He's also phenomenal after the catch. He brings good size to the table at over 200 pounds. And of course, you know, he has been able to put up some really good production in his NFL career with some really poor quarterback play. They're in Washington. He's had quarterbacks like Carson Wentz, Sam Howell, Taylor Heineke. And last year, once he got Jaden Daniels, finally got a competent quarterback, that touchdown number skyrocketed to double digits, 13 touchdowns for Scary Terry last year. Of course, he also, once again, got over 1,000 yards receiving, and he's one of the best deep threats in the National Football League still. But he's also a really good route runner. He brings great size to the table, all the things that we have talked about. Terry McLaurin is a phenomenal true alpha number one wide receiver in the National Football League. Now, Terry is reportedly looking for more money than what the Steelers gave to DK Metcalf when they traded for him the day before NFL free agency this year. And, you know, when it comes to that kind of money and paying two guys that kind of money, that would be a significant investment for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You guys can see here that Terry wants to be in the top 4 highest paid wide receivers on an annual basis. DK is currently the number 4 highest paid receiver with $33 million per season annually. And right now, according to Adam Schefter, he's looking for more than that current figure. So the worry with Terry and paying him that much money at, you know, going into his age 30 season is the potential regression. And we have seen some receivers that have been really, really good at the age of 30, but then start to regress once they get into their early 30s. The most recent example was Amari Cooper. And you guys can see, you know, last year, Terry's production versus Amari Cooper's production in 2023 with the Browns at the same age, by the way, is very, very similar. Now, Amari had more yardage, but Terry had more touchdowns, and he had the higher Pro Football Focus grade and had more catches overall. But very similar production. They were legit number 1 wide receivers. But then Amari Cooper gets to his age 31 season last year, and you guys can see what happened to his production. Dropped off dramatically. He developed a bigger kind of drop issue. He wasn't the same athletically, and the Commanders are worried that they're going to pay Terry McLaurin elite level money, and then he is going to regress, and they're going to be stuck with him because of all the guaranteed money that would be on his potential deal. So that is certainly something that is a concern for the Washington Commanders right now, why they haven't gotten a deal done. But coming up here on Steelers Talk, I'm going to be talking about whether or not the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that is really trying to win now, really have a one-year Super Bowl window with Aaron Rodgers in here at quarterback. Does this make sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers to pursue Terry McLaurin? We're going to be talking about that here in just a second. But first, let me know down there in the comments section, what is the percent chance that Terry McLaurin gets traded before the season this year? Put it on a scale of 0, meaning no chance he gets traded, to 100, meaning he's definitely going elsewhere. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section for today's pinned question. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Fanatics. And while I'm talking about Fanatics, go down there in the comments section and let me know the percent chance McLaurin gets traded. And speaking of Fanatics, here is the Aaron Rodgers jersey that they have on their website right now. Guys, if you want to get an Aaron Rodgers jersey before the start of the season and you want to help out our channel today, you can go chatsports.com/AR8. That link is down there in the comments and description of today's show. And if you click that link and you make a purchase, Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds here at Steelers Talk to help out our channel, keep the lights on, pay rent, do all the things that we need to do here. Plus, you get an Aaron Rodgers jersey in your closet today. So you can go chatsports.com/AR8 to make that happen, and we greatly appreciate your guys' support. So listen, guys, Terry McLaurin and DK Metcalf on the same offense here in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers throwing them the football. It would certainly be exciting, and I think that it would make one of the best wide receiver duos in the National Football League, if not the best. It's certainly the most expensive, maybe outside of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. However, I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be pursuing Terry McLaurin. And, I hate to be the bearer of bad news there, but, I've tried to be honest with you guys, and I try to tell you guys the truth as I see it, and I think that Omar Khan and the Steelers aren't really interested in paying two receivers $33+ million in an offense here that they're going to want to run the football a lot. And I think from Pittsburgh's view, they like where their wide receiver room is at. They were willing to pay DK Metcalf that kind of money this offseason to be their number one receiver, but I'm not sure with all the heavy tight end sets that they're going to want to run this year that they're going to want to pay two wide receivers that caliber of money. And you got to remember, Arthur Smith's plan and his vision for this Steelers offense is to really live in heavy personnel, 12 and 13 personnel packages with 2 and 3 tight ends on the field at one time, because they want to have the size advantage over the defenses that they play, and they want to run the football a lot. They want to have the size advantage while also having the versatility to beat you through the air. I break down Arthur Smith's offense and how he plans to implement it here in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Caleb Johnson, and all the pieces Pittsburgh currently has on offense in a video we put out a couple of weeks ago. I'll put the link to that one in the comments and description, and to put the chip in the top right so you guys can check that out if you want. But to kind of give you the condensed version here, guys, you can take a look at their tight end room, and they love the fact that they're so versatile in this group, all right? They have a smaller tight end in Jonnu Smith, who's almost more like a big slot receiver. You got Pat Freiermuth, who's a mid-sized possession-style tight end who is fantastic out there, as a receiving threat. And then you got Darnell Washington as kind of your large, kind of sixth offensive lineman blocking type of tight end that still brings some athleticism to the table. So having these three guys allows you to be versatile. It allows you to threaten with the pass, but also threaten with the run and have the size advantage. It forces defenses to go out there in their heavier, slower base personnel, which of course gives DK Metcalf more opportunities after the catch with his speed and run after the catch ability as well. But guys, they're going to be living in 13 personnel, and like in 13 personnel, you only have one wide receiver on the field. So if you get Terry McLaurin and you pay him all that money, then you're pretty much putting one of your wide receivers on the bench in those situations when you are in 13 personnel. And if you're going to be paying DK Metcalf and Terry McLaurin all that money, it just doesn't really make sense to put one of them on the bench, right? I think that the Steelers have a very defined offensive vision right now, which is to live in those 12 and 13 personnel packages. They'll probably lead the National Football League in 13 personnel plays run this year. And, I just don't know if adding another expensive wide receiver aligns with their offensive vision heading into 2025. And by the way, their preference to live in 12 and 13 heavy personnel packages is why they were okay trading George Pickens, right? Pickens is a good player, but they weren't going to pay him all that money long term. And the Cowboys gave the Steelers a draft pick that they felt like was workable there with the talent that George Pickens brought to the table. So, I know a lot of Steelers fans were upset that they traded away George Pickens because they wanted to see that wide receiver duo. But the thing with the Steelers, guys, and something you got to realize here, is that they're going to be living in those 12 and 13 personnel packages throughout the most of the 2025 season, so it doesn't really make sense to have another expensive receiver in here. And at the end of the day, guys, even if the Pittsburgh Steelers did want to trade for Terry McLaurin, which I don't think they necessarily do, I don't think Washington is going to entertain the possibility. I think that they know that they need Terry McLaurin in order to win a Super Bowl this year with Jaden Daniels as a second-year quarterback. But, at the end of the day there, you got it takes two to tango in the National Football League to make a trade happen, and I'm I'm not even sure if either side is going to be willing to make this trade happen. Adam Schefter said yesterday there have been teams that have contemplated making a move for disgruntled wide receiver Terry McLaurin, but the Commanders have had no interest in moving on from him. So, obviously the Commanders right now, even with the trade request, they're not really entertaining trade offers right now for their superstar wide receiver. And like their wide receiver room right now, guys, it's definitely not looking great without Terry McLaurin in there, but they are definitely in win now mode. They're trying to win a Super Bowl right now. And remember when Commanders fans were saying, oh, the Steelers might trade TJ Watt to the Commanders? And remember, Steelers fans were like, no way that's going to happen. They're in win now mode. They're trying to win a Super Bowl. They're not about to trade away their superstar edge rusher. Well, it's the same logic for why the Commanders probably aren't going to trade Terry McLaurin, because you take Terry away from this wide receiver group, and it's like, you're going to replace him with Luke McCaffrey? Are you going to replace him with Chris Moore? You're going to replace his role with KJ Osborne? Like, Deebo Samuel's a decent gadget type of receiver, but he's no longer a true number one threat. He really has never been a true number one outside receiver. He's been more of a gadget piece throughout his career. So the Commanders know they need Terry in order to win a Super Bowl. And if they did consider a trade, they would need a wide receiver in return. And my question to you guys is, who are the Pittsburgh Steelers offering in a trade that the Commanders would want? Calvin Austin III, an undersized type of wide receiver? Roman Wilson, somebody that's gotten off to a slow start in camp and didn't play at all in his rookie season, essentially? Robert Woods, an ancient veteran wide receiver? I just don't see any wide receivers on this Steelers roster that the Commanders would be interested in. And, I think that, other teams can offer better returns. Teams like the Colts, they can offer him like Alec Pierce or Michael Pittman Jr., the 49ers, Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings are some possibilities there. The Patriots, Kyle Williams and Kayshon Boutte. There's just more other teams out there that have better receivers to offer the Commanders if they want to trade McLaurin. So even if the Commanders did want to trade McLaurin, I don't think Pittsburgh has the best package in order to land the all-pro receiver. And guys, a trade request isn't necessarily the death of an extension, all right? We've certainly seen this in the National Football League over the last several seasons, where a trade request is very much a negotiation tactic in the National Football League nowadays, where you've got a lot of players, putting out these trade requests because they want to get negotiations going with their current teams, because, talks have stalled a little bit. You can take a look at some recent examples of guys that used a trade request as a negotiation tactic. People forget Lamar Jackson requested a trade away from the Baltimore Ravens before he got his big deal. Myles Garrett and Trey Hendrickson both had trade requests earlier this offseason. It appears both of those guys will remain with their organizations this year. Of course, Garrett had that record-breaking $40 million per season contract. Brandon Ayuk did it last year with San Francisco. As we found out, he always wanted to stay in San Francisco. He just used the trade request as a negotiation tactic. And then T. Higgins and Deebo Samuel both had trade requests formally submitted to their teams, and they both got deals done with their respective clubs. So, now moving on here, I want to kind of shoot down some trade ideas that I have seen on Steelers Twitter over the last, 20 hours or so since the trade request was put in. The first one being trading Alex Highsmith, the number 2 edge rusher here in Pittsburgh, and a third-round pick in exchange for Terry McLaurin. And the logic goes, the Steelers have Nick Herbig and they got Jack Sawyer. They have good depth at the edge rusher position. So getting rid of Highsmith, you still have a good edge rush group, but you also unload some of the money that you would then be taking on by paying Terry McLaurin a massive new contract. But I actually think both sides of this potential deal say no to this, guys. I think Pittsburgh says no because I think Alex Highsmith gets Pittsburgh closer to winning a championship than trading him for McLaurin does. I think that this defense needs to be the linchpin for why the Steelers are title contenders this year, and to beat the AFC's elite quarterbacks, because, you don't have an elite quarterback. I think Aaron Rodgers can be very successful here, but he's not on that level anymore of the Mahomeses and the Lamar Jacksons and the Josh Allens and the Joe Burrows. In order to beat those guys, you have to have a pass rush like the Eagles did last year in the Super Bowl that can absolutely suffocate those guys so that it gives Rodgers an opportunity to compete, even though he's not quite as good as those other quarterbacks. And right now, you've got an excellent rotation of pass rushers, both exterior and interior. Right now, you got Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt as your starters. Nick Herbig is the best rotational edge rusher in football. And if you take Highsmith out of there, like, Herbig is a good player, but he's not nearly the run defender Highsmith is. He's not as good in coverage as Highsmith is, so you don't have the same level of versatility. And then as much as I like Jack Sawyer as a run defender and as a fourth edge rusher in case somebody gets hurt, I don't know if I trust him right away to be that true rotational piece. So your edge rush group and your pass rush as a whole gets worse by getting rid of Alex Highsmith. And as we talked about, with all the 13 personnel packages the Steelers are going to run, I don't know if Terry elevates the offense as much as, say, an Alex Highsmith does for the defense at this point in time. But that's just where I'm at right now. I think Washington says no to that potential deal as well, though, because I think their edge group, they like it right now. Frankie Louvu, most people view him as kind of an inside linebacker, but he's actually used as an edge in their defense. They also really like Dorrance Armstrong, and then they just signed Von Miller in free agency, so I don't think the Commanders necessarily have a need at edge rusher at this point in time. And then the other trade idea that I've seen thrown out there is send Pat Freiermuth, the tight end, not the edge rusher there, the Pat Freiermuth, the tight end, and a second-round pick in exchange for Terry McLaurin. And, the reasoning for this is, the Steelers want to play a lot of 13 personnel, but if you get rid of Pat Freiermuth, then you can have Terry McLaurin and DK Metcalf on the field at all times. Freiermuth's contract gets off your books, and you can get Terry McLaurin and DK Metcalf in the same offense. But once again, I think that both teams say no to this potential deal. I think Pittsburgh says no to it, because I don't think they want to blow up that tight end room. I think they have a very defined vision for what they want this offense to look like, and I don't think they're about to blow that up at this point in time. And then I think Washington says no to this potential deal because they already have Zach Ertz, and even though Ertz is older, might be retiring after this year, he has a really good chemistry with Jaden Daniels, and they don't really run a lot of two tight end sets, so it doesn't really make sense to have Ertz and Freiermuth in their offense. So I don't think that that trade idea is feasible either. So long story short here, guys, we've discussed a lot about Terry McLaurin today, but I would just say don't get your hopes up. Now, if Omar Khan is able to get him for an appropriate price, I will be very excited about it. Don't get me wrong. I think Terry's a hell of a football player. I just don't know how Terry and paying him the amount of money that you would have to give up for him makes sense within the Steelers' vision heading into the season. And I don't want you guys to get me wrong either. I think Pittsburgh could still add a receiver, but I think they would probably prefer a less expensive option than Terry McLaurin. There's still some good free agent options out there. Gabe Davis visited the Steelers. He apparently really enjoyed his visit. I'm sure he would sign a contract with the Steelers on a moment's notice. Amari Cooper is still out there. Keenan Allen is still weighing his options in NFL free agency as well. I think that all these options would be far less expensive and would be good wide receiver 2 options for the Steelers. And then if you want to trade for a receiver, there's still some good options out there. Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks are 2 players that could be odd men out there in the Green Bay wide receiver room. According to Zachary Smith, the Steelers made a call about Trey Palmer earlier in the offseason. Adam Thielen is an older receiver playing on a non-competitive team there in Carolina that might be on the chopping block as well. And then John Mechie from the Houston Texans, a good route runner and run blocker that could be a good fit for the Steelers and wouldn't cost that much in a trade. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. Besides Terry McLaurin, which wide receiver would you like the Pittsburgh Steelers to add this offseason? Because Roman Wilson has gotten off to a slow start in camp. His connection with Aaron Rodgers has not looked particularly great to this point. So I could certainly see them bring in another wide receiver to pair with DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin III. Now, before I go here, I do want to talk a little bit about Micah Parsons because the news broke today that his relationship with the Dallas Cowboys has really broken down quite a bit. The news was broken by Diana Rossini from The Athletic earlier today, who says this: breaking, the Micah Parsons-Cowboys relationship has deteriorated to the point where the star pass rusher is considering drastic measures, which could include a trade request or even a declaration that he is severing his relationship with the team, per multiple league sources familiar with the situation. The two sides remain far apart heading into the second week of training camp and are not currently negotiating. And then she expanded on this minutes later, saying among the key issues, Micah Parsons spoke directly with Jerry Jones over multiple days in the spring. The team believed those conversations were negotiations and that they had a deal, multiple league sources said. But Parsons believed the talks were just conversations and wanted his agent to handle the negotiations. When his agent attempted to start negotiations, the Cowboys declined to engage with him and told the pass rusher that they believed they already had a deal. Now the team is refusing to engage with Parsons' agent at all, creating a tense standoff amid increasing friction. And on top of that, a Cowboys insider, Clarence Hill, had this to say about Parsons' preferred destination if he wasn't going to be a Dallas Cowboy. Said Parsons has no interest playing anywhere but with the Cowboys. He said it's important for his legacy and doesn't want to bounce around. But if he hypothetically did go home later in his career, it would be to join the Steelers, not the Eagles, partly because of head coach Mike Tomlin. Now, I've been seeing a lot of people put that quote on Steelers Twitter saying the Steelers should go trade for Micah Parsons, but unfortunately, this isn't very likely either, in my opinion. And I'm sorry to throw cold water on the bonfire here, guys, because these are two big names. They're two all-pro caliber receivers, but I just don't see the Steelers trading for either Terry McLaurin or Micah Parsons at this point. A potential deal and what it could look like, hypothetically, is you could trade Alex Highsmith, maybe 2 second-round picks, consecutive second-round picks there in 2026 and 2027 in exchange for Micah Parsons, who is a legit elite number one edge rusher. You could make an argument that he's better than TJ Watt. I know a lot of Steelers fans would disagree with that, but Parsons' versatility, the ability to put him at off-ball linebacker, the ability to put him on the interior, and then, of course, as dominant as he is on the edge, his versatility and his dominance playing multiple spots is unmatched in the National Football League. But, guys, the financials just don't make a ton of sense here. You're already paying TJ Watt over $40 million per season, and if it doesn't make sense to pay 2 receivers over $30 million per year, it definitely doesn't make sense to pay 2 edge rushers over $40 million per season, especially because the Steelers, as is, already have the best pass rush in the National Football League. And by the way, you are paying Alex Highsmith for pennies on the dollar, according to the edge rusher market right now. Like, his cap hits are like $18, $19, $20 million per season. That's nothing compared to the $35 and $36 and $40 million deals that are happening at that position today. So the Steelers, I think they're set. They've got their top 3 edge rushers, which is the best edge rushing trio in the National Football League. They don't necessarily need Micah Parsons, as cool as it would be to see him in black and gold. So predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will Micah Parsons be a Steeler sometime in his NFL career? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. For me, I personally doubt it unless it's later in his career, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And I want to thank you guys for sticking it with me here throughout the entirety of this show. It's been a longer one today, talking a lot about these rumors, going in depth as to my reasons why I don't think these things are going to happen. But if they do, and Omar Khan pulls off yet another blockbuster trade, we will be right here going live here on Steelers Talk to talk about it all right here on the channel. So click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until tomorrow, guys, here we go, Steelers.